My husband said he was going to Singapore on business for 10 days. But at 3 a.m., the police called to inform me he was dead in the bathtub of a villa. My heart shattered when I realized the woman embracing his lifeless body was his own cousin, someone we had considered a younger sister. Heavy rain lashed against New York City that night as if the sky were weeping, pouring all its sorrows onto the earth. The water hammered against my car's windshield in a chaotic rhythm, competing with the hum of the engine and the blare of horns from vehicles packing the Belt Parkway towards JFK. In the passenger seat beside me, my husband sat calmly, though he occasionally glanced at the watch on his wrist. "Honey, the rain's getting heavier. I hope the flight isn't delayed," I said, breaking the silence, my eyes fixed on the slick, misty road. My husband offered a faint smile, a smile that usually managed to calm my anxious heart. "Don't worry, darling. Even if it's delayed, I can wait in the lounge. The important thing is you drive carefully on your way home. These slick roads are dangerous for you to be driving alone." I nodded, feeling the warmth of the care he had consistently shown me throughout our 5 years of marriage. "My name is Evelyn, and as a forensic pathologist at the NYC Office of Chief Medical Examiner, I was accustomed to horrific things. Every day, I confronted death, cold bodies no longer living, and the mysteries hidden behind bruises and wounds. But in front of my husband, I was just a wife who wanted to be cherished and protected. The exhaustion from a long day dealing with the victims of a multi-car pileup on the I-95 seemed to evaporate when I was with him. Tonight, my husband was leaving for Singapore. He said there was urgent business related to a real estate project his company was developing. 10 days. That was a long time for me to sleep alone in our large house in Scarsdale. We arrived at Terminal 4, the International Departures Hall. The airport was bustling despite the clock showing 8 p.m. People hurried past with large suitcases, each absorbed in their own affairs. Some shared farewell hugs, others laughed in welcome. I parked the car in the drop-off zone, leaving the engine running as I didn't plan to be long. "I'll walk you to the security checkpoint, Aaron," I offered, unbuckling my seatbelt. "You don't have to, darling. You look exhausted." "Look at the bags under your eyes," my husband gently refused. His hand reached out to caress my cheek. His touch was warm, but for some reason, tonight it felt different. A slight tremor, or was it just my imagination? "It's okay. 10 days without seeing you is a long time." "I want to see you until the very last second," I pleaded playfully. He finally gave in. We got out of the car. The cold air, carrying the scent of wet asphalt and jet fuel, immediately hit my skin. My husband pulled his cabin-sized suitcase from the trunk. He was wearing his favorite navy blue formal suit, a matching tie, and polished dress shoes. He was always impeccably dressed, a perfectionist in all things. But as we walked side by side towards the entrance, my forensic instincts, trained to notice the smallest details on a body, suddenly caught something odd. My eyes were drawn to his right wrist. There, a pricey chronograph watch I had given him for his birthday last year was fastened. I frowned. My husband was left-handed. From the time we were dating until now, he had always worn his watch on his left hand so it wouldn't interfere with writing or working. Why was he wearing it on his right hand tonight? "Aaron," I called out softly, slowing my pace slightly. "Yes, darling?" He turned, his face looking a bit tense, though he tried to mask it with a smile. "It's strange to see you wearing your watch on your right hand. You're left-handed, aren't you? Won't it be a hassle when you're signing documents or filling out immigration forms?" I asked, purely out of curiosity. My husband seemed momentarily stunned. His eyes blinked rapidly, a micro-expression that usually indicated someone was searching for an excuse, but he quickly let out a small laugh. "Oh, this. I was in a hurry when I put it on after washing my hands, so I just put it on whichever wrist. Besides, my left arm was a bit sore from carrying files at the office earlier." A plausible reason, I thought. Though a small sense of unease lingered in my heart, I observed his appearance again. That's when I noticed the second oddity. The bottom button of his suit jacket looked slightly loose, as if the thread was about to snap. My husband was a man who paid meticulous attention to his appearance. He would never leave the house with a button about to fall off. especially not for a business trip to meet important clients in Singapore. Aaron, your jacket button, I pointed to his stomach. It's so loose. What if it falls off? It doesn't look professional. His face turned pale for a second. Then he quickly covered the button with his hand. Ah, yes. It got caught on the car door handle when we left. Didn't have time to change. I'll sew it a bit or change jackets when I get to the hotel in Singapore. It's okay, darling. Don't worry about the little things. He sounded impatient. Usually, he would thank me for pointing out things about his appearance. But tonight, he seemed to want to end the conversation quickly. Maybe he's stressed about this project, I reasoned internally. Or maybe I was just tired and paranoid. I had spent the entire day in the morgue, smelling formalin and blood, analyzing horrific injuries. Maybe my brain was malfunctioning, looking for problems where there were none. We reached the departure gate. A TSA agent stood sternly, checking tickets and passports. My husband turned to face me, placing both hands on my shoulders. His gaze was deep, but a fog seemed to cover the usual clarity in his eyes. Take care of yourself, Evelyn. Don't work too hard. Remember to eat, he said softly. I will, Aaron. You too. Text me as soon as you get to the hotel, okay? And don't forget to video call, I requested. He nodded, then pulled me into his embrace. The hug was incredibly tight, tighter than usual, as if he never wanted to let me go. The scent of his woody cologne mixed with a faint smell of sweat and, wait. There was another scent, very faint, like the sharp smell of an antiseptic. I was about to ask, but he had already released the hug. He kissed my forehead for a long time, then whispered, I love you. I love you too, Aaron, I replied. He turned, pulled his suitcase, and walked towards the agent. I stood there, frozen, watching his strong back move away from me. He handed over his passport and ticket. The agent checked them briefly, then nodded, allowing him to pass. Before disappearing completely behind the automatic glass doors, my husband turned one last time towards me. He waved. I returned his wave with a forced smile. For some reason, as the glass doors closed and his figure was no longer visible, my chest felt tight. A bad feeling crept into the depths of my heart, cold and gripping. It felt like the moment I see a victim's family crying hysterically in the waiting room of the morgue. A sense of loss that hadn't happened yet, but its shadow was already haunting me. Oh, stop it, Evelyn, I muttered to myself, shaking my head to dispel the negative thoughts. He's only gone for 10 days, not forever. Have you been watching too many detective movies or dissecting too many bodies? I turned around and walked back towards the parking garage. My steps felt heavy. The sound of the rain outside the airport still roared. I got into the car, locked the doors, and leaned back for a moment in the driver's seat. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, trying to calm my slightly racing heart. The image of the watch on his right hand and the loose button reappeared. Why was he wearing his watch on his right hand? I asked the silence of the car again. He's never, not once, worn his watch on the right. Even when his left hand was injured, he'd rather not wear a watch at all. And that faint, antiseptic smell. It was similar to the smell I often encountered at the hospital. But my husband worked for a real estate company, not a hospital. Why did his clothes smell like that? Exhaustion finally won the debate in my head. I started the car, putting on some soft jazz to accompany my journey home. I needed to rest. I had another autopsy scheduled for tomorrow morning. Maybe after a good night's sleep, all these oddities would seem perfectly logical. Maybe tomorrow morning when I woke up, there would be a text from my husband telling me he had arrived safely in Singapore and was enjoying breakfast. Yes, that must be it. My car sped away from the airport, piercing through the curtain of rain that was growing heavier. I didn't know that the hug just now was our last. I didn't know that the figure I waved goodbye to was not the one who would be returning home to me. And I certainly didn't know that the real storm wasn't the rain outside, but the one heading straight for me, ready to destroy my entire life in a matter of hours. The streets of New York at night, or rather, in the dead of night, felt so foreign to me then. After leaving the airport, I sped down the now empty parkway. Only large logistics trucks rumbled slowly in the right lane, and a few private cars zipped by in the left. The rain had subsided, leaving wet asphalt that reflected the orange-yellow glow of the streetlights. Arriving at our large house in Scarsdale, the silence greeted me like a cold blanket. The house felt too vast to be occupied alone. Usually, at this hour, my husband would still be in his home office, engrossed in his laptop, or we'd be sitting together on the living room sofa watching a TV series before bed. His presence always filled every corner of the house. Now, without him, the house was just a cold pile of bricks and mortar. I cleaned myself up, taking a hot shower to release the tension in my muscles. My mind still drifted back to the airport. The watch on his right hand, the loose button, the antiseptic smell. Enough. I forced myself to stop analyzing. My brain needed a break. At 11 p.m., I lay in our king-sized bed. The left side of the bed, where my husband usually slept, was empty and neat. I hugged his pillow, inhaling the scent of him that lingered on the pillowcase, a comforting scent. Slowly, my eyes grew heavy. Physical exhaustion finally pulled me into a deep, dreamless sleep. Ring, ring, ring. The shrill ringing of the house phone jolted me from my subconscious. My heart pounded from the shock. I fumbled for my cell phone on the nightstand in the dark. The screen showed 3 a.m. Who would be calling at this hour? Usually, if there was an emergency call at a time like this, it was from the medical examiner's office. Perhaps a new homicide case requiring an immediate autopsy or a mass casualty incident. As a forensic pathologist, my work hours were unpredictable. I picked up the receiver of the landline on my side of the bed. "Hello, Aaron and Evelyn's residence. Who is this?" My voice was hoarse, the typical sound of someone just woken up. A brief silence on the other end, then a man's deep voice spoke. "Good morning, ma'am. I apologize for disturbing your rest. Is this Dr. Evelyn, wife of Mr. Aaron Cole?" I frowned. It wasn't the voice of the office receptionist, and his manner of speaking was very formal, like a police officer. "Yes, this is she. Who is this, and what is the purpose of calling at 3 a.m.? "This is Detective Miller, from the East Hampton Police Department, ma'am." East Hampton PD. My drowsiness vanished instantly, replaced by a sense of alarm. "The police? What is it, detective? Is there a problem with a relative of mine?" The man on the other end of the line seemed to take a deep breath, as if reluctant to deliver the news he was about to share. "Well, Dr. Cole, we've just received a report from a resident regarding the discovery of 2 bodies in a private villa in the Montauk area. Based on the identification found in the male victim's wallet, his name is Aaron Cole, with an address listed as this residence." The world seemed to stop spinning. The air in the air-conditioned room suddenly felt suffocating. I sat stiffly on the edge of the bed, clutching the phone receiver so tightly my knuckles turned white. "You must be mistaken," I cut in quickly, my voice starting to tremble. "My husband, Aaron Cole, is currently on a business trip to Singapore. I dropped him off at JFK myself last night at 8 p.m. His flight took off at 9 p.m. It's impossible for him to be in Montauk. We understand, ma'am, but the driver's license, credit cards, and physical characteristics of the victim are identical to your husband's data. Height, approximately 5'10", straight, slightly wavy hair, a small mole under his left ear." The detective's description was like a lightning bolt striking my head. A mole under his left ear. That was a very specific physical trait. Not many people had it. My breathing became ragged. "No, it's not possible," I murmured faintly. "Maybe his wallet was stolen. Maybe it's someone who looks like him. Dr. Cole, to confirm this, we must ask you to come to the scene immediately to identify the body. We cannot move the deceased until a family member has seen them." How is his condition?" I stammered. My doctor's instincts suddenly took over, even though my heart was breaking. "I'm sorry, ma'am. We found Mr. Cole in the master bathroom of the villa. In the bathtub. He was found deceased, with a woman." That last sentence hit me harder than the news of his death itself. "With a woman, in a bathtub. What do you mean?" I asked in a high-pitched voice, a mixture of anger and disbelief. "My husband is not that kind of person. He's a faithful man. Don't you dare make baseless accusations. We are only reporting the facts found at the scene, ma'am. Please come as soon as you can. I will text the address to your cell phone right now." The line went dead. I was still holding the receiver, staring blankly at the bedroom wall. My ears were ringing. This had to be a nightmare, a very cruel prank. My husband was in Singapore. He was sleeping in a 5-star hotel at Marina Bay Sands. He couldn't possibly be in Montauk, let alone dead in a bathtub with another woman. My cell phone vibrated. A text message from an unknown number. The coordinates for White Dahlia Villa, Montauk. I didn't have time to cry. I had to prove that the detective was wrong. I had to see with my own eyes that the body wasn't Aaron's. Or if it was, no, I couldn't bear to imagine it. With trembling hands, I grabbed my car keys and a thick jacket. I ran out of the house like a madwoman, not caring that I was still wearing my pajamas under my jacket. I got in the car, started the engine, and floored it. The Long Island Expressway was eerily quiet at this early hour. I pushed my car over 90 miles per hour. My mind was in turmoil, spinning between denial and fear. Why was he in Montauk? Didn't he go through the departure gate? I saw it myself. But then, the memory of the oddities at the airport resurfaced. The watch on his right hand, the loose button, his rushed demeanor, that antiseptic smell. Had he lied to me? Was the trip to Singapore just an alibi? Did he have another woman all this time, hiding her so perfectly from me? Did he intentionally create a business trip scenario to go on a getaway with his mistress in the Hamptons? Tears began to blur my vision. The pain of betrayal started to creep up, competing with the pain of loss. "Aaron, how could you?" I sobbed, pounding the steering wheel. "If that's really you, I don't know what I'll do." My car sped through the thin fog that was beginning to descend on the highway. The closer I got to the Hamptons, the thicker the fog became, as if nature was trying to hide the painful truth behind its white curtain. The cool coastal air began to seep through the car windows. Every mile I passed felt like a countdown to hell. I'm a forensic pathologist. I have examined thousands of bodies. I know what death looks like. I know the smell of death. But I was never prepared to examine the death of the person I loved most. An hour later, I exited onto Route 27 and headed towards the winding roads of Montauk. In the distance, the lights of villas twinkled on the hillsides, looking beautiful but holding a mystery. At 4:30 a.m., the roads in Montauk were still deserted. Only a few trucks transporting fish and produce moved slowly. The GPS led me onto a small, steep, and unpaved road, away from the main drag. The villa was secluded, hidden behind a grove of pine trees. From a distance, I could see the flashing red and blue rotator lights of police cars reflecting off the trees. Yellow police tape was stretched across the gate of a grand but gloomy villa. My heart felt like it was about to burst out of my chest as I parked my car in the driveway. Several police cars were already there, and what made me feel even weaker was the sight of a familiar black luxury sedan. My brother-in-law, Marcus's car. Why was Marcus here? Did the police call him too? I got out of the car, my legs feeling like jelly. The cold Montauk air pierced my bones, but a cold sweat soaked my back. A uniformed police officer approached me. "Dr. Cole?" he asked. I nodded stiffly, unable to speak. "Please follow me, ma'am. The bodies are still inside. Your family, Mr. Marcus, and your mother-in-law are already inside." My mother-in-law, too? How did they get here so fast? That question crossed my mind but was buried by the growing fear. I followed the officer, passing through the wide-open front door. The scent of death, the metallic smell of blood, mixed with a faint, sweetish odor of decay, immediately hit my trained nose. We headed to the master bedroom. There, in front of the open bathroom door, stood Marcus and my mother-in-law. My mother-in-law was crying hysterically in Marcus's arms. When she saw me, her gaze turned into one full of anger and accusation, as if this were all my fault. "Go on in," Marcus said coldly, without a hint of sympathy on his face. I stepped into the spacious bathroom. The floor was made of expensive marble. In the center of the room was a large, white, freestanding bathtub. And there he was, Aaron, the man I loved, lying stiffly in the bathtub, which was half filled with reddish water. His face was pale, His lips blue. He wasn't wearing a single thread of clothing. His position was seated, leaning against the tub wall. But what made my world collapse instantly was the figure in his arms. A young, long-haired woman, also naked, was draped across Aaron's chest, her arms wrapped around my husband's neck. Her face was covered by her wet hair, but I could see her pale white skin. I covered my mouth with my hand, stifling a scream that wanted to erupt. My legs gave out. I fell to my knees on the cold marble floor, staring at the horrific scene before me. "Aaron," I whispered. The officer next to me said quietly, "I'm sorry, ma'am." We found erectile dysfunction medication and a bottle of wine on the table. The preliminary assumption is a heart attack due to an overdose during sexual activity. Overdose? An affair. Aaron? I wanted to believe the officer's words. The evidence was right in front of my eyes. My husband died in the arms of another woman, naked. But as I looked more closely at Aaron's body, my forensic eye caught something that made my blood run cold. Something that an ordinary person, and perhaps even a non-forensic police officer, would miss. On Aaron's back, which was exposed because of his slightly tilted position, I saw livor mortis, the post-mortem lividity. The purplish-red discoloration was evenly spread across his entire back. My mind raced. Lividity forms due to gravity, where blood settles in the lowest parts of the body after the heart stops pumping. If Aaron had died in a seated position in the bathtub like this, the lividity should have collected in his buttocks, the backs of his thighs, and his lower legs, not evenly across his back. An even discoloration on the back meant one thing. Aaron died in a supine position, lying flat somewhere. He was left there for several hours until the lividity became fixed, and only then was he moved to this bathtub and placed in a seated position. This wasn't a sudden death during lovemaking. This was a moved body. This was a staged crime scene. My husband didn't die because of an affair. My husband was murdered, then placed here to frame him. I lifted my face, looking at Marcus standing in the doorway with a flat expression, and my mother-in-law still wailing about family disgrace. In the midst of my shattered heart, a steely resolve began to grow. I would not let them bury this truth along with my husband's body. I wiped my tears away harshly. The role of the grieving wife had to be set aside for a moment. Now, it was time for Dr. Evelyn Cole, the best forensic pathologist from the ME's office, to take over. I was still kneeling on that cold marble floor. My knees ached, but the pain in my chest was far more dominant. The smell of the room was suffocating, a mixture of expensive lavender soap, the evaporated alcohol from a spilled wine bottle, and the distinct, encroaching smell of death, the metallic scent of blood that had stopped flowing and was slowly beginning to decay. My eyes were fixed on Aaron, my husband, the man who had held me at the airport just hours ago, now frozen in the most humiliating position for a husband, a son, and a respectable man. The detective behind me was still talking in a flat tone, explaining the premature chronology they had concluded, but his voice was a mere drone in my ears. My focus was split. Part of me wanted to scream, cry, and shake Aaron's body until he woke up and explained all of this. But the other part of my brain, the part forged over years in the morgue, began to work automatically, cold and calculating. "Evelyn, get up." The voice came from the doorway. I turned slowly. Marcus, Aaron's older brother, stood there in a neat black suit, though it was only 5 a.m. Beside him, my mother-in-law stood clutching a handkerchief, her face swollen, but her eyes shot daggers of dislike at me. "Marcus," my voice was hoarse. "Why? How did you get here so quickly?" Marcus stepped past the police line with an ease that suggested he owned the place. He crouched down in front of me, placing a hand on my shoulder. His touch wasn't comforting. It felt heavy and oppressive. "The police called Mom first because her number was at the top of Aaron's emergency contacts in his wallet. She called me immediately. We happened to be staying at our family's place in Southampton, so we could get here right away. A perfect alibi, too perfect. Look at what your husband has done, Evelyn." My mother-in-law suddenly spoke, her tone high and shrill, breaking the grim silence. She pointed a trembling finger at the bathtub. "He said he was going to work, on a business trip, but it turns out he was fooling around with some cheap tramp here, ending up dead like a fool. You, As a wife, couldn't keep your husband in check. If you were any good at satisfying him at home, Erin wouldn't have gone looking for cheap thrills elsewhere. Her words were like a hot slap across my face. At a time when her son lay dead, I was the one being blamed. But I chose not to engage with her anger. My eyes returned to Erin's body. Something was wrong, very wrong. I moved closer to Erin's body, ignoring my mother-in-law's disgusted look. I touched the skin on his arm. Cold. Rigor mortis, the stiffening of the body after death, was fully established. His body was as stiff as a board. Based on the body temperature and the rigidity, the estimated time of death was about 6 to 8 hours ago. That meant he died around 9 or 10 p.m., right when his plane was supposed to take off. Then my eyes were drawn to his back. Because he was seated slightly tilted to the left, part of his right back was exposed. There, under the pale skin of his back, a uniform purplish-red color was visible. Livor mortis. Post-mortem lividity. My heart pounded. This time, not from grief, but from the adrenaline of discovery. As a forensic pathologist, I knew well that lividity is caused by gravity. When the heart stops pumping, blood settles in the lowest parts of the body. If Erin had died sitting in this bathtub, the blood should have pooled in his buttocks, the backs of his thighs, and his calves. His back should have been pale, as no blood would have settled there. But this was not the case. The lividity on Erin's back was evenly and widely distributed, and when I pressed it lightly with my fingertip, the color didn't fade or disappear, it was non-blanching. This meant the lividity was fixed. The conclusion was medically absolute and irrefutable. Erin died in a supine position, lying flat on a floor or a bed for at least 6 hours until the lividity was fixed. Only then was his body moved and placed in this bathtub. Someone had moved my husband's body. Someone had staged the scene to make it look like he was soaking with this woman. "This is murder," I whispered. My voice trembled with a brewing rage. Marcus, still crouched beside me, frowned. "What are you talking about, Evelyn? Don't be hysterical." The police found performance-enhancing drugs and traces of narcotics on the table. Erin overdosed. "Don't make things more difficult." I looked Marcus straight in the eye. "Look at his back, Marcus. The lividity is on his flat back. If he died sitting here, the lividity would be on his butt. He died lying flat. Then someone moved him here after he was stiff. This is a setup, Marcus. Erin was murdered somewhere else." Marcus's expression changed for a split second. A very faint flicker of panic in his eyes. But it was quickly masked by a cold composure. He stood up and pulled my hand to make me stand as well. His grip was painfully strong. "Evelyn, listen," he hissed in my ear, his voice low but full of threat. "Do you want the whole world to know that Erin died while cheating? Do you want our family's reputation destroyed? The company's stock could plummet if this news gets out. The media will have a field day with this. Honorable Doctor, Cole's husband dies with a prostitute in the Hamptons. Is that the headline you want tomorrow?" "I don't care about reputation," I snapped, shaking off his hand. "I care about the truth. My husband was murdered, Marcus, and that woman." I turned towards the body of the woman, still embracing Erin. I mustered the courage to move the hair aside, to see her face. I recoiled. My breath caught in my throat. I knew that face. Though her lips were blue and her eyes were wide and vacant, I still recognized her innocent features. Claire, my cousin. My mother-in-law, hearing the name, came closer. "What? Who is this?" "It's Claire, Mom. Erin's distant cousin from Ohio who stayed with us when she first came to New York," I said, my body shaking violently. "Erin treated her like his own sister. It's impossible that Erin was having an affair with Claire." My mother-in-law just snorted dismissively. "Ha, men will be men. A cat won't refuse a fish. What an ungrateful girl. We helped her, and she seduces her own cousin's husband. Good for her that she's dead too." "Enough, Mom," I shouted. My tears flowed again, but this time from overwhelming frustration. "Officer," I called. To the detective standing near the door, I request that my husband's body and this woman's be taken to the NYC Medical Examiner's office immediately. I will perform the autopsy myself. There are inconsistencies with the lividity. This was not a natural death. The officer looked hesitant. He glanced at Marcus. Marcus immediately stepped forward, took out his wallet, showed a business card to the officer, and then spoke in a hushed but firm tone. "Officer, I am Marcus Cole, the victim's older brother. We refuse an autopsy. We do not want our family's shame dissected. We want the bodies taken home immediately to be prepared for a private funeral. But, sir, the victim's wife is requesting an autopsy due to indications of foul play," the officer said, conflicted. "The victim's wife is in severe shock, officer. She's hysterical and hallucinating," Marcus cut in sharply. He stared at me with an intimidating gaze. "Evelyn, get a grip. You're a doctor, but you're being emotional right now. Don't torture your husband's body with a scalpel. Let him rest in peace. Do you want your husband's body to be cut up when it's clear he was in the wrong?" "He wasn't in the wrong, Marcus. He was framed." "Let's just decide," my mother-in-law interjected loudly. "I am his mother. I gave birth to him. I will not allow anyone to touch my son's body with a knife. We're taking Aaron home now. Marcus, handle everything. Don't listen to his crazy wife." The officer seemed intimidated by the dominance of the Cole family, who were known to be wealthy and influential. "All right, if the family refuses an autopsy, please sign the autopsy waiver form, but we still have to conduct an external examination. Do what you have to do, but don't take too long." "I've already called a private ambulance," Marcus said coldly. I felt my world collapsing. They were blocking every legal avenue. If the immediate family refuses an autopsy, the police often don't force it unless there's very clear evidence of a crime at the scene. And here, everything had been arranged to look like an accident resulting from a wild lifestyle. The wine bottle, the pills, the intimate position, it was all a perfect stage play. I looked at Aaron's body for the last time in that room. "I'm sorry, Aaron. They can take your body, but I swear they won't be able to bury the truth." My eyes caught another small detail as the attendants began to lift Aaron's body into a body bag. Aaron's fingernails looked clean, too clean. Usually, there would be a bit of dirt or ink from his work, and there was that smell again. As they lifted him, the faint antiseptic smell I had noticed at the airport returned, mixed with the smell of death. A hospital antiseptic. Not perfume, not the villa's soap. Someone had cleaned his body before bringing him here. Someone who knew how to handle a body. "Evelyn, let's go home." Marcus pulled my arm roughly, forcing me out of that hellish bathroom. "Don't make a scene in front of the police." I walked unsteadily, following them, leaving Aaron, now zipped up in an orange bag. Outside the villa, dawn was breaking. The Montauk fog was still thick, hiding a sun that was reluctant to shine. In my head, a new war had just begun. Marcus thought he had won by preventing the autopsy, but he forgot one thing. I was a forensic pathologist. I knew that the dead always talk, even after they have become ash, and I was going to listen to what Aaron had to say. Whatever it took. The journey from Montauk back to the city felt like a silent funeral procession. Marcus had one of his drivers take my car, while I was forced into the back seat of his luxury sedan, wedged between my mother-in-law and a locked car door. My mother-in-law never stopped grumbling, lamenting her fate of having a son who died in disgrace, and occasionally blaming me for not being a good enough wife. I remained silent, staring blankly out the window, watching the green trees rush by, replaced by concrete buildings as we entered Queens. My mind was racing faster than the car. Marcus didn't take Aaron's body to our home in Scarsdale, nor did he take him to a respectable funeral home. He directed the convoy of the ambulance and family car straight to a crematorium in an industrial part of Brooklyn. "Why are we going here, Marcus?" I asked, breaking the silence as our car turned into a dusty, hot area near the waterfront. "Why not take him home first? Our neighbors, his colleagues, our relatives, they all want to pay their respects." Marcus answered without turning from the front seat, busy typing on his phone. "The body has started to decompose, Evelyn, and the circumstances are embarrassing. We can't let people see Aaron's face, blue like that. Not to mention the gossip that will spread. Your mother and I agree it's best to cremate him today. We can have a proper memorial with his ashes at a place like Frank E. Campbell's for the mourners. Cremation? Today? I was shocked, but the procedure can't be that fast. There needs to be a death certificate, permits from the Department of Health, and a waiting list. Money can arrange the waiting list, Evelyn, Marcus replied coldly. I've handled everything. The relevant officials have agreed. At 10 a.m. this morning, Aaron will be cremated. The watch on my wrist showed 9:15 a.m. They wanted to destroy the evidence as quickly as possible. Cremation was the most effective way to eliminate traces of murder. 1, 2, poison, wound marks, signs of internal violence. Everything would be turned to dust in a 1,800-degree furnace. If Aaron was cremated, I would never be able to prove he was murdered. I had to do something. We arrived at the grim crematorium complex. The air here was hot, sticky, and smelled of smoke. An old building with a tall smokestack loomed against the gray Brooklyn sky, like a final gateway to nothingness. The ambulance had already arrived. The crematorium workers, in shabby uniforms, were talking to Marcus. They nodded respectfully, or perhaps fearfully, as Marcus slipped a thick envelope into their supervisor's pocket. They brought out a simple casket that Marcus had bought on the way. Aaron was already inside. There was no solemn religious ceremony, no beautiful flowers, only a suspicious haste. Hurry up, the furnace is ready, Marcus ordered the workers. They pushed the casket towards the cremation chamber. I ran after them. Wait a minute. Marcus blocked me at the iron door of the cremation chamber. Evelyn, stop it. Don't make this farewell any harder. I'm his wife, Marcus, I screamed, tears flooding my face again. This time, I let them flow freely to elicit sympathy from the people around. I haven't had a chance to see my husband's face one last time. How can you be so cruel? Let me fix his tie. Let me kiss him one last time. 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. After that, you can do whatever you want. My voice echoed in the silent hallway. A few crematorium workers looked at me with pity. My mother-in-law turned her face away, unwilling to watch the drama. Marcus seemed to be weighing his options, looking impatiently at his watch. He realized that denying a wife's final request in front of many witnesses could raise suspicion. Fine, Marcus grumbled. 2 minutes. You alone. Be quick. Marcus signaled the workers to open the top part of the casket and step back. He himself stood near the exit, on the phone with someone, his back to the casket. This chance wouldn't come again. I approached the casket. Aaron looked so peaceful. Even though his face was pale, my heart shattered into a million pieces seeing him. But I couldn't get lost in my grief. I had to act fast. I leaned over, pretending to hug his neck, and sobbed uncontrollably, my body shielding Marcus's view and that of the CCTV camera in the corner of the room. I'm sorry, Aaron. I'm so sorry. I have to do this, I whispered into his cold ear. My hands moved deftly. From the pocket of my jacket, I took out a small nail clipper that I always kept on my car keychain. With a swift movement, I snipped a small lock of Aaron's hair from the back of his head, then put it into a small plastic zip-top bag that happened to be in my pocket, left over from some headache pills. Next, his nails. I took Aaron's right hand, which was folded on his chest. I clipped the tips of his index and middle fingernails. If he had fought his attacker, there might be traces of the perpetrator's DNA under his nails. The nail clippings also went into the plastic bag, which I quickly hid inside my bra. Safe. 1 minute left. I had to find the cause of death. If the livor mortis indicated he was moved, what killed him? There were no stab wounds, no ligature marks on his neck. Poison! I felt the back of his head and neck, pretending to stroke his hair while continuing to sob so Marcus wouldn't get suspicious. My trained fingers traced the cold skin behind his ear, an area often missed in a standard examination. Bingo. Behind his right ear, hidden by his hairline, my finger felt a tiny puncture mark with a little bruising around it. The mark of a very fine hypodermic needle. This was how they killed him. An injection in a hidden area to make it look like a natural death or a heart attack. I had to document it. But how? Marcus could turn around at any moment. I bowed my head lower, as if kissing Aaron's cheek. My right hand reached into my jacket pocket, took out my phone, and turned it on in silent mode. Using my body as a shield, I took a macro shot of the area behind his ear. Once, twice. Clear. The injection site was recorded. "Time's up, Evelyn!" Marcus's voice boomed from behind. I jumped, nearly dropping my phone. I quickly put the phone back in my pocket and wiped Aaron's face with my hand, as if wiping away the tears that had fallen on his cheeks. "Goodbye, my love. I promise I will make them pay," I whispered very softly, a vow made at the gates of the fire. Marcus pulled my shoulder roughly, forcing me away. The crematorium workers immediately sealed the casket shut. The sound of the lid being secured echoed like a death knell. The incinerator hummed loudly. The giant furnace door opened, revealing hungry orange flames. A blast of hot air hit my face. "Burn it," Marcus commanded emotionlessly. My husband's casket was pushed inside. The iron wheels screeched on the concrete floor. Slowly but surely, the casket slid into the belly of the fire. I watched the end of the casket disappear, and then the furnace door closed with a loud thud that echoed throughout the room. Boom. My husband's body was gone. The biggest physical evidence of this crime was now being consumed by flames. In a few hours, he would be nothing but ash. His bones would be crushed into powder. Marcus smiled faintly. A victorious smile he thought no one saw. He felt safe. He thought he had cleaned up everything, but he was wrong. He didn't know that hidden in my bra and on my phone, I held the key that would drag him to the gallows. I stood frozen, staring at the closed furnace door. My tears had dried up. The sadness was slowly turning into a fuel far hotter than the fire inside that furnace. Vengeance. "It's done," Marcus said, dusting off his hands as if he had just thrown out the trash. "Let's go to Campbell's. We need to prepare to receive guests." "Don't look so glum, Evelyn. You have to look strong for the sake of your husband's reputation." I turned to look at Marcus. This time, I didn't look down. I looked straight into his eyes. "Of course, Marcus, I will be very strong. I will do anything for Aaron's justice." Marcus seemed a little surprised by the change in my tone, but he quickly dismissed it. He thought I was just a wife trying to be brave. We walked out of the cremation chamber. The New York sun was high, stinging my skin, but I no longer felt the heat. My heart was frozen. My investigation had just begun. First step, the lab. I needed to know what poison was injected into Aaron's body from the hair and nail samples. And Claire, that poor woman. If she wasn't his mistress, then who was she? Why did she have to die with Aaron? I discreetly took out my phone and sent a short text to my friend, Ratna, who owned a private pathology lab in Midtown. "Ratna, I need your help. Urgent. Prepare a full toxicology screening kit. I'm bringing samples. Don't ask any questions yet." I got back into Marcus's car. This time, I no longer felt like a prisoner. I was a hunter in disguise, waiting for the right moment to strike my prey. The memorial service at the Frank E. Campbell Funeral Chapel was a nauseating display of hypocrisy. Marcus stood at the podium, delivering a eulogy with crocodile tears about how much he missed his beloved younger brother, while business associates and dignitaries nodded in sympathy. I stood beside him in a black dress, playing my part as the grieving widow. But my mind wasn't there. My thoughts were on the jacket pocket where Aaron's hair and nail samples were hidden. As soon as there was an opening, while the guests were busy with the catering, I slipped away. "I need some fresh air. My head is spinning," I told my mother-in-law, who was busy flaunting her grief to her socialite friends. Without waiting for a reply, I rushed to the parking lot, hailed an Uber, and sped through the Manhattan traffic towards Midtown. My destination was the pathology lab owned by Ratna, a classmate from medical school. Ratna was trustworthy. She wasn't bound by the slow and rigid bureaucracy of a public hospital. "Evelyn, are you serious about these samples?" Ratna asked, her face worried as I handed her the plastic bag containing the nail clippings and hair. She looked at my disheveled state, still in my morning dress. "Test for everything, Ratna, especially for poisons that disappear quickly from the bloodstream." "I suspect this wasn't a simple heart attack," I requested firmly. Waiting for the lab results was torture. An hour felt like a year. I sat on a hard lab stool, staring at a silent microscope, while the hum of a centrifuge filled the silence. My mind drifted to Claire. Who was she really? Her face felt familiar, like a blurred memory from the past. Evelyn. Ratna's call snapped me out of my thoughts. She emerged from the analysis room, her face pale, holding a printout of the results. You were right. This was murder. My heart stopped for a second. What did you find? No narcotics, no lethal levels of alcohol. But I found traces of succinylcholine in high concentration in the hair follicle tissue and residual blood under the nails, Ratna explained, her voice trembling. Succinylcholine. 3. My legs went weak. I knew that drug. It's a powerful muscle relaxant, typically used for general anesthesia before surgery. This dosage. It's insane, Evelyn, Ratna continued. This drug works by paralyzing all the body's muscles, including the diaphragm. The victim can't move, can't scream, can't even breathe. But this drug doesn't affect consciousness. Aaron. He was fully aware as he suffocated. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. The image of Aaron, alone, terrified, paralyzed, while someone injected that poison behind his ear. It was an incredibly cruel and torturous death. And one more thing, Ratna added, handing me a magnified microscopic photo. Under his middle fingernail, there was a fragment of foreign skin. The DNA doesn't match Aaron's, and there's also a fiber, a cheap, red synthetic fabric. Red, I murmured. Marcus was wearing a red silk pocket square in his suit jacket at the villa. But that was circumstantial evidence. I needed more. Keep this evidence safe, Ratna. Don't let anyone know, I pleaded. Now I have to find out who that woman was. Claire. I left the lab with my heart burning with rage. Armed with the name Claire and a faint memory of her face, I started digging. I remembered an old family address book of Aaron's that I had seen in the storage room. After rummaging through stacks of boxes at home, I found it. Claire Anjani, original address, Cleveland, Ohio. I did a digital search. Her social media was quiet, but there was one last location tag, Garment District, NYC. That same afternoon, I changed out of my expensive dress into a plain t-shirt and jeans and headed to a densely populated area of apartments behind the Garment District. Narrow, grimy alleys, the stench of garbage, and clotheslines blocking the way greeted me. It was a stark contrast to the luxury of Marcus's villa or our house in Scarsdale. I asked the local residents, showing them a photo of Claire's body that I had discreetly taken at the villa before the police bagged her. "Oh, that's Claire," exclaimed a woman who owned a small deli. "Poor girl. She was a good kid, very religious, but lately she'd been crying a lot. Do you know where she lived?" The woman pointed to a 2-story tenement building with peeling paint. I hurried over. The door to apartment #4 was unlocked. Inside, a young woman was packing boxes while crying. "Are you Claire's friend?" I asked gently. The woman jumped, startled. "Who are you? A debt collector?" "Please, Claire's already dead. Don't cause trouble here." "No, I'm not a debt collector. I'm the wife of the man who died with Claire," I said honestly. The woman fell silent, staring at me intently. "Mrs. Cole? You're Aaron's wife? You know Aaron?" "Yes, ma'am." "Mr. Cole was Claire's guardian angel," the woman replied, sobbing. "Claire was a distant cousin of Mr. Cole's. She came to New York to work but got scammed by a placement agency. She ended up working odd jobs. Then she got trapped in a payday loan. The interest rates were insane, ma'am. A $1,000 loan turned into $10,000 in a month. They threatened to spread edited nude photos of her if she didn't pay. 4. 5. My blood boiled. Predatory lenders. 6. Claire didn't dare tell her family back home. Finally, she desperately contacted Mr. Cole. He was shocked. He came here right away and confronted the debt collectors who were harassing Claire. Mr. Cole promised to pay off all of Claire's debts and take her back to Ohio. "So they weren't having an affair?" I asked, though my heart already knew the answer. "God, no, ma'am." Claire respected Mr. Cole so much. He was like an older brother to her. That night, Mr. Cole picked Claire up, said he was taking her to a safe place because the debt collectors were getting more aggressive. I never imagined it would end up like this, with the news on TV. The woman handed me a small notebook belonging to Claire. On the last page was the name of the payday loan app, Pocket Cash. My hand trembled as I took out my phone and searched for information about the app. Pocket Cash. Its parent company was registered overseas, but its digital footprint led to a shell corporation in New York, Buona Arta LLC. And I knew who the majority shareholder of Buona Arta LLC was, Marcus Cole. The puzzle pieces began to fall into place. Marcus owned an illegal payday loan business that preyed on the poor, including his own cousin. 7, 8. Aaron must have found out about this while trying to help Claire. The honest and upright Aaron must have threatened to report his own brother's dirty business. Marcus killed Aaron not because of a real estate rivalry, but because Aaron knew too much about Marcus's illicit business empire. And Claire, she was just an additional victim, used as a prop to cover up the murder with a cheating scandal. Marcus was truly a devil in human form. He killed his own brother and cousin for money. I walked out of that narrow alley as the sun began to set. The New York sky was blood red, as if reflecting the rage burning in my chest. My husband's good name had to be restored. Aaron was not a cheater. He was a hero who died trying to protect his family. Now I needed stronger evidence that could place Marcus at the scene of the murder or shatter his alibi. And for that, I had to go back to where it all began. JFK Airport. The night grew later, but my eyes refused to close. Physical exhaustion had been replaced by a sharp surge of adrenaline. I drove my car to a 2-4-hour computer repair shop in a nondescript strip mall in Queens. The shop was closed, its metal roll-down gate locked tight. I knocked on the side door with a specific pattern. 3 quick taps, 2 slow ones. The door opened a crack. A skinny man with thick glasses and messy hair peeked out. "Dr. Cole?" he asked, surprised. "What are you doing here this late?" "The shop's closed. I need your help, Ben." "It's a matter of life and death," I said, pushing my way inside. Benny was a former patient of mine, or rather, a victim of wrongful arrest whom I had helped prove innocent through a forensic analysis of a gunshot wound 2 years ago. He was an IT and cybersecurity genius. He owed me his life. "I need access to the CCTV footage from JFK Airport Terminal 4. Last night, between 7 and 9 p.m., I said without preamble as we sat in front of his array of glowing blue computer monitors. Benny's jaw dropped. "Are you crazy, Doc? That's illegal. I could face multiple felonies if I get caught hacking an airport. My husband was murdered, Ben, and the killer made it look like he left for Singapore. I have to prove he never got on that plane." My gaze was sharp, pleading and demanding at the same time. Benny fell silent, seeing the earnestness in my eyes. He let out a long sigh and swiveled his chair to face his main workstation. "Okay, but this is going to be tough. I can't hack the airport's main server directly, that's suicide. But I have an inside contact in the CCTV server maintenance department. I can ask for a copy of the backup footage under the pretense of a system check." 30 minutes later, the large monitor in front of us displayed black and white footage from various angles of Terminal 4. "Okay, what time did your husband check in?" Benny asked, his fingers dancing across the keyboard. "Around 8:10 p.m. International Departures Gate," I replied. My eyes glued to the screen. Benny played the footage. We saw a crowd of people milling about. Then, at 8:12 p.m., a figure appeared. A man in a navy blue suit, pulling a cabin-sized suitcase, walking towards the automated immigration checkpoint. "There he is!" I exclaimed. "That's Aaron." But then I fell silent. "Wait. Pause it, Ben. Pause." Benny hit the spacebar. The image froze. I moved closer to the screen. The figure was indeed wearing the exact same clothes Aaron wore when we parted. His posture was very similar, as was his hair, but something was wrong. "Try to zoom in on his right hand when he scans his passport," I instructed. The image enlarged, a bit pixelated, but clear enough. The man held the passport with his right hand and scanned it with his right hand. "He's a lefty, Ben," I whispered, a chill running down my spine. Aaron is a pure lefty. He never does anything important with his right hand, especially not a reflex action like scanning a passport. He always uses his left. Maybe he was holding his suitcase with his left hand, Benny countered. No. Look at his suitcase. He let go of the handle. The suitcase is standing on its own. His left hand is free, but he still used his right. Then I remembered again. The watch. Look at his wrist. The watch is on his right. Okay, that's weird for a lefty, but it's not enough proof, Doc. He could have just been trying a new style, Benny said skeptically. Play the video again. I want to see how he walks. Gait analysis, I requested. As a forensic pathologist, I had studied human anatomy in depth, including the biomechanics of movement. Everyone has a unique signature in the way they walk. Aaron had an old ankle injury on his left side from playing soccer years ago. If he walked fast or was tired, his left foot's support would be slightly weaker, causing his left shoulder to dip a little with each step. We played the video over and over, focusing on the man's feet and shoulders. Look, I pointed. His steps are perfectly steady. His weight is balanced on both sides. His shoulders don't dip. This man, he doesn't have a history of an ankle injury. His walk is too military, too stiff. Aaron walked in a more relaxed way, with a slight drag. Benny was starting to get intrigued. So you're saying this isn't your husband? It's someone else wearing a mask or who had plastic surgery? Not plastic surgery. His posture is similar, his clothes are the same, his hair is styled the same. From a distance or on a blurry CCTV camera, he looks like Aaron, but his biomechanics are different. This is a body double. If this isn't Aaron, then where is the real Aaron? Benny asked. Rewind the footage. Find the point where I parted with him. At the drop-off zone, I commanded. We searched the exterior camera footage. At 7:55 p.m., my car was seen stopping. We got out, hugged. I saw myself on the screen, hugging Aaron. My heart ached, seeing that scene again. Then Aaron walked inside. We tracked the real Aaron's movements. He entered the main door towards the check-in area, but then he turned. He went to the restroom, Benny said, the men's room near Pillar D4, at 8 p.m. Aaron entered the restroom. We waited. The minutes ticked by on the CCTV's timestamp. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Aaron never came out. The person who came out of that restroom at 8:15 p.m. was the man in the same blue suit, but with the watch on his right hand and the stiff walk. The fake Aaron. Wait, rewind again. Pay attention to who else went in and out of that restroom, I said, my eyes narrowing. Several people went in and out, but one was suspicious. At 8:20 p.m., 5 minutes after the fake Aaron left, 2 janitors came out pushing a large, wheeled trash bin, an industrial-sized bin used to collect trash for an entire terminal. They were struggling to push it, as if its contents were very heavy. Ben, track those janitors, I urged. Benny switched to the employee hallway cameras. We followed the 2 janitors. They didn't head towards the trash disposal area. They pushed the large bin towards an employee exit on the ground floor, leading to the loading dock area. There, an unmarked black van was waiting. They lifted the trash bin into the van. One of the janitors took off his mask for a moment to wipe his sweat. I held my breath. I recognized that face. It wasn't an ordinary janitor. It was one of Marcus's trusted bodyguards, a tough-looking man who often accompanied Marcus during family meetings. Aaron was in that trash bin, my voice choked. They drugged him in the restroom, changed his clothes with the imposters, put him in the bin, and took him out through the employee route. Meanwhile, the imposter boarded the plane, or pretended to go through the gate so the system would register that Aaron had departed. This was a very well-planned operation, involving many people. Doc, you're dealing with a psycho, Benny murmured, his face fearful. They can kidnap someone in a secure place like an airport. Are you sure you want to continue? I stared at the screen showing the black van driving away, carrying my husband to his death. My fear was gone, burned away with Aaron's body at the crematorium this morning. Copy all this footage to a flash drive, Ben. Upload it to the most secure cloud server you have. Multiple layers of encryption, I ordered coldly. Where are you going? I'm going to a party, I replied, standing up and fixing my messy hair. Marcus is hosting a company gala tonight at the Kempinski Hotel. He's celebrating the success of his new project. He thinks he's won. He thinks there are no witnesses. I looked at my reflection in the dead monitor screen. The face of a wife who had lost everything. But in those eyes was the look of a killer ready for revenge. I'm not going there as an invited guest. I'm going as his nightmare. That night, Manhattan glittered like jewels on black velvet. The lights of skyscrapers around Columbus Circle twinkled, competing with the glow from the monument itself. But the city's luxury was nothing more than a mask. Just like the party happening in the ballroom of the Mandarin Oriental tonight, behind the shimmering crystal chandeliers and the clinking of champagne glasses lay a rottenness that stank more than a decaying corpse. I stood before a large mirror in the hotel lobby's powder room. The woman staring back was not the hysterical Evelyn who had cried at the crematorium that morning. The woman in the mirror wore a backless evening gown in solid black, the color of death and also of power. My lips, usually painted in a nude shade, were now a fiery red, like fresh blood. My hair, once disheveled, was now in a sleek, elegant bun, revealing my long neck. I had not come as a fragile widow. I had come as an angel of death. In my hand, I clutched a small silver clutch. Inside was the flash drive containing the copy of the airport CCTV footage Benny had obtained. But my primary weapon was not the flash drive. My primary weapon was a bluff. I knew Marcus. He was a paranoid businessman. He had killed his own brother out of fear that his secrets would be exposed. Fear was the fuel I would use to burn him alive. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with courage, and then I walked out. The grand ballroom doors were opened by a hotel attendant. The cool air of the air conditioning hit me, mixed with the scent of expensive perfume from hundreds of New York's elite. The sound of an orchestra playing classical music floated softly, a backdrop to the small talk of socialites and tycoons. Marcus stood in the center of the room, surrounded by sycophants praising his success. He laughed freely, a glass of wine in his right hand. Beside him, my mother-in-law sat in a wheelchair, a new dramatic prop to garner sympathy, receiving condolences with a practiced, sad face. "Poor Mrs. Cole," whispered a woman near the entrance as I passed, "to lose a son, but still be strong enough to support her eldest. Yes, they say Aaron died of an overdose." "How shameful," her friend replied. My hands clenched into fists, my nails digging into my palms. "Just you wait. Soon you'll know who the real trash is." I strode through the crowd. The sound of my high heels on the marble floor was firm, rhythmic, like a countdown to Marcus's destruction. One by one, heads began to turn. The murmuring that had been buzzing slowly died down. They were shocked to see me. A widow who had just lost her husband this morning should be at home crying, not at a gala in such stunning attire. Marcus, who had been laughing, suddenly stopped when he saw me. His smile vanished. His eyes widened in a mixture of shock and wariness. My mother-in-law even dropped the glass of water she was holding. I kept walking, my gaze locked on Marcus's eyes. I didn't stop until I was standing right in front of him. "Good evening, brother-in-law," I greeted him, my voice calm but clear in the silent room. I emphasized the words brother-in-law with a sarcastic tone. "Evelyn," Marcus cleared his throat, trying to regain his composure. "What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be resting at home? You're still in shock." "Shock?" I smiled faintly, a smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Of course, I'm in shock. But I thought it wouldn't be fair for me to grieve alone at home while my brother celebrates his success here. I wanted to join in celebrating Aaron's liberation." The people around us began to whisper in confusion. Marcus moved closer, gripping my upper arm tightly, trying to disguise it as a warm embrace. "Go home, Evelyn. Don't cause a scene here. You're embarrassing the family." I didn't push his hand away. Instead, I brought my face close to his ear as if to kiss his cheek. The smell of alcohol and his expensive cologne stung my nose. But beneath that, I could smell fear. "I know what you did at the airport, Marcus," I whispered, my voice low but sharp as a scalpel. "I know about the body double. I know about the laundry bin. And I know about the succinylcholine you injected behind your brother's ear." 3. Marcus's body went rigid. His grip on my arm loosened. His face, which had been flushed from the alcohol, now turned deathly pale. He looked at me as if he were seeing a ghost. "What are you talking about?" he hissed. I took a step back, putting on a sweet smile for the watching guests. "Oh, don't pretend you've forgotten. Aaron left something for me before he left. An insurance policy." I held up my silver clutch slightly. "He stored all the data about the Blue Ocean Project and Buona Arta LLC on a secret hard drive, and I just unlocked it. The name Buona Arta LLC was my ace. It was the name of his illegal payday loan shell company, 7-8. If that name was mentioned, he knew I wasn't bluffing. Marcus's jaw tightened. The veins on his neck bulged. He realized he couldn't kill me here, in front of hundreds of witnesses and socialite reporters' cameras. "We'll talk outside," Marcus growled. "Not outside," I cut him off. "On the roof helipad. Now. Just the two of us. Or I'll play the contents of this flash drive on that big projector screen right now and let all of New York see your dirty business." I glanced at the giant projector on the stage, then back at him with a murderous look. He was cornered. "Fine," he said coldly. 5 minutes. You go up first. Don't even think about bringing your bodyguards, Marcus. If I see even a shadow of one of your pet gorillas, this data will be automatically sent to the FBI and 5 national news outlets. I've already set the timer." That was a lie. Of course. But Marcus didn't know that. I turned gracefully, leaving Marcus looking like a man who had just swallowed his own poison. I walked towards the VIP elevator, ignoring my mother-in-law's confused calls. Inside the glass elevator that took me to the highest floor, I saw the reflection of the city shrinking below me. My hands were shaking violently once the elevator doors closed. My adrenaline was peaking. This was the biggest gamble of my life. I was walking into the lion's den alone. Benny had placed a tiny listening device behind the flower brooch pinned to my dress. It was connected directly to the phone of Detective Miller, a senior homicide detective who owed me a favor. I had once successfully identified the remains of his son, a victim of a mall fire. Miller was a straight cop, one of the few left. He was already waiting on the roof's emergency staircase with his team. But until Marcus confessed, the police couldn't move. I had to bait that confession out of his mouth. I had to be live bait. The elevator chimed. 57th floor. Rooftop. A strong night wind hit my face as soon as the elevator doors opened. The city's noise was a distant hum below, replaced by the roar of the wind whipping against my black dress. The helipad was empty and dark, lit only by the floodlights from the surrounding buildings. I walked to the center of the helipad, stood there, and waited for the murderer to arrive. My heart beat in time with the seconds on a clock. 1 minute, 2 minutes. The emergency stairwell door on the other side opened. Marcus appeared. He was alone, but his right hand was hidden in his jacket pocket. He strode towards me with long, angry steps. "Give me the flash drive, you bitch!" he yelled, his voice lost in the wind. "Where are your manners, brother?" I yelled back. "You killed my husband, you slandered him, and now you're yelling at me. Is this how you treat family?" Marcus stopped 10 feet in front of me. He pulled a pistol with a silencer from his jacket pocket. "Family?" Marcus laughed, a dry, insane laugh. Aaron was a fool, a self-righteous saint. He wanted to report me to the SEC and the police just because of some hick cousin who was in debt. He had no idea how many billions were circulating in that business. He was destroying the business I worked so hard to build. "So you killed him for money? Just for money?" I prodded. "Not just money. This is about pride," Marcus said, taking a step forward. He was always Mom's golden boy. Aaron the smart one, Aaron the doctor, Aaron the good one. I was just Marcus the troublemaker. But look who's winning now. I control everything. "You're not winning, Marcus. You're a loser," I said calmly, though my knees were trembling at the sight of the gun. "You didn't even have the courage to face him like a man. You kidnapped him from an airport bathroom like a coward, injected him with a paralytic poison when he wasn't ready. You were afraid of him." "Shut up!" Marcus fired a warning shot. The bullet hit the concrete floor near my feet, creating a small spark. "Yes, I'm the one who injected him," Marcus screamed, his eyes wild. "You know how satisfying it was to see him lying helpless on that villa bathroom floor?" His eyes were wide open, fully conscious, but he couldn't move a single finger. I whispered to him that his wife would think he died having sex with a prostitute. I saw the tears well up in his eyes as his breath stopped. It was the most beautiful sight, Evelyn. My chest tightened hearing those details. The pain was excruciating, but this was what I needed. A confession. And Claire? I asked again, holding back my tears. Why did she have to die? That stupid girl, Marcus snorted with disgust. She was a witness. She knew about my debt collectors, so I just made her part of the set. Same poison, lower dose. I placed her in Aaron's arms to make the story perfect. 2 birds with 1 stone. Marcus aimed the gun at my head. Now it's your turn. Give me the flash drive, and maybe I'll make your death quick. Or do you want me to throw you off here so it looks like a suicide out of depression? I looked at Marcus with pity. He had truly lost his soul. You know, Marcus, I said slowly, Aaron once told me, the most dangerous person isn't the one holding a gun, but the one holding the truth. I raised my hand and touched the brooch on my chest. Did you hear all that, Detective Miller? Marcus's face turned confused. Who? Suddenly, blinding floodlights on the helipad turned on from all 4 corners, turning the dark night into bright daylight. Marcus was blinded, raising his hand to cover his eyes. Drop your weapon! NYPD. A voice boomed through a megaphone from the direction of the emergency staircase. The steel door was kicked open. Dozens of heavily armed SWAT team members in tactical vests and assault rifles stormed the helipad. Marcus panicked. He looked left and right for an escape route, but he was surrounded. The helipad was encircled by police rifle barrels. Detective Miller stepped forward with his gun drawn. Marcus Cole, you're under arrest for the premeditated murders of Aaron Cole and Claire and Johnny, and for running an illegal enterprise. Drop your weapon now, or we will shoot. Marcus trembled. The gun in his hand felt heavy. He looked at me with pure, unadulterated hatred. For a second, I thought he would be reckless enough to shoot me, but his cowardly instinct was stronger than his nerve. He threw the gun to the floor and raised his hands. This is a setup, he mumbled as the police slammed his body onto the concrete and cuffed his hands behind his back. I walked over to him, now sprawled on the dirty floor. My black dress fluttered in the wind. I crouched down slightly, looking into his eyes, now filled with fear. This isn't a setup, Marcus, I whispered coldly. This is an autopsy. I just dissected your crime down to its very roots. And the verdict is in. Marcus's arrest that night became the lead story on every national news channel. The recording of his confession, captured by my listening device, was played repeatedly during his trial a few months later. No high-priced lawyer could save him from the forensic evidence I had gathered. The succinylcholine residue in Aaron's hair, the injection mark behind his ear, the airport CCTV footage analyzed by Benny, and my own testimony. His illegal payday loan business was completely dismantled. His assets were seized by the state. Hundreds of loan victims who had been terrorized could finally breathe a sigh of relief. Marcus was sentenced to death. Justice, though it came late and at a high price, was finally served. My mother-in-law suffered a stroke as soon as she learned her favorite son had been arrested and sentenced to death. She now lies in a hospital bed, unable to speak, only able to stare at the ceiling with a vacant expression. I still visit her occasionally, not out of affection, but because Aaron would have wanted me to. After all, she was the woman who gave birth to my husband. This afternoon, 6 months after Aaron's death, I returned to a rooftop, but not at the hotel where Marcus was arrested. I was on the roof of the hospital where I work. The New York sky this evening was a beautiful orange and purple. A gentle breeze blew, carrying the familiar scent of city dust. I held a small, white marble urn. Marcus had managed to cremate Aaron's body, but he couldn't eliminate everything. I had managed to save a small amount of Aaron's ashes after the investigation was completed. Aaron, I whispered to the wind. It's over. It's all over. I remembered Aaron's smile at the airport that night. His last, sincere smile before our world was turned upside down by greed. I remembered how he always patiently listened to my stories about the bodies I examined. He was never disgusted, He always said, "Your work is noble, Evelyn. You give a voice to those who can no longer speak." Now I had done that for him. I had become his voice. "Your name is cleared, my love," I continued, warm tears flowing down my cheeks. But this time, they were not tears of painful grief. They were tears of relief. "You are a hero. You died defending the weak. You died as a good man." I opened the lid of the urn. Slowly, I sprinkled my husband's ashes into the air. The wind immediately caught the fine grains of ash, carrying them high, merging them with the New York sky, with the dusk. It felt like releasing 1,000-ton weight from my shoulders. I watched the ashes disappear, dancing freely in the air. No more pain, no more poison, no more slander. I touched my still flat stomach. There was one little secret I hadn't had the chance to tell Aaron at the airport that night because I wanted it to be a surprise when he returned from Singapore. A new life was growing inside me. God had taken Aaron from me, but he had left a small piece of Aaron for me. This child would never know their father directly, but I would make sure they knew everything. I would tell them that their father was the greatest man I had ever met, that the blood flowing in their veins was the blood of a warrior for truth. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A message from Benny. "Doc, case closed. Coffee's on you sometime soon." I smiled a little. Life had to go on. There were many other bodies in the morgue waiting for their stories to be told. "Goodbye, my love," I said one last time to the darkening sky. "Wait for me there. But don't be in a hurry. I still have a job to do, raising our little champion here." I wiped my tears, straightened my doctor's coat, and turned to walk towards the door. My steps were light. The storm had passed, and though it left wreckage behind, the sun would surely rise again tomorrow morning. Dr. Evelyn Cole was back on duty.